What would you do if the very people you trusted most in the world, your own mother and sister, stole 10 million from you overnight? If you're wondering why I'm smiling, stick around. My name's Mackenzie. I'm 31, and just a few weeks ago I sold my tech startup for $20 million, the kind of life-changing number you only dare to dream about when you grow up like I did with a single mom, hand-me-downs, and way too many dinners made from expired canned soup. The night before everything collapsed, I thought I was on top of the world. I had a $10 million cash offer ready for the home of my dreams, a sleek architectural marvel tucked in the Portland Hills, all glass walls and infinity pool overlooking the city skyline. I could already see myself working in the home office, hosting friends in the massive open kitchen, and finally giving Jason, my fiancé, the kind of future we'd both worked for. But before the closing, I needed somewhere secure to store the cash, just overnight. And I made the worst decision of my life. I trusted my mother. Growing up, my mom, Diane, was all grit and struggle. She worked double shifts at the local diner, her hands always raw from dish soap and her ankles swollen from long hours on her feet. She raised me and my younger sister, Rebecca, alone in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment with crumbling walls and dreams we didn't dare speak aloud. We celebrated birthdays with boxed cake and plastic dollar store streamers. Christmas gifts came from layaway, vacations. We didn't even know what those were. From the moment I understood what poverty felt like, the kind that leaves you holding your breath, when the rent's due, I knew I had to get out. While other kids hung out at the mall or gossiped after school, I studied. I worked shifts at the local grocery store. I hoarded every dime in a coffee can under my bed. When I got a full scholarship to MIT, it felt like a door cracked open into a world I wasn't supposed to see. I survived college on instant noodles, cheap coffee, and willpower. I worked 2 part-time jobs and sent home whatever I could spare. Even when I had nothing, I gave. Because that's what family meant to me. Sacrifice. After graduation, I clawed my way into tech. Long hours, zero sleep, and enough rejection to make anyone quit. But I didn't. I launched my startup secure flow building encryption software for banks and financial institutions. The early years nearly broke me maxed out credit cards, ramen dinners all over again, but eventually we landed a major contract. Then another. Then venture capital came knocking. The day I signed the acquisition deal for $20 million, I called my mom first. She cried. Rebecca squealed. They were so proud, so supportive. Or at least that's what I believed. Over the years, I'd made sure they never had to struggle again. I bought my mom a beautiful 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, something she could have only dreamed of. Paid off her medical bills. Set up an allowance so she could finally quit waitressing. Rebecca, well, she'd always struggled. She dropped out of college, bounced between jobs, had a long string of bad relationships, and worse excuses. But I helped her anyway overdo rent car repairs emergencies that always seemed suspiciously convenient. Whenever I tried to gently suggest getting a real job or meeting with a career coach, it always ended in tears. I was the cold one, the judgmental one, the one who thought she was better. But I never questioned their love. So when the $10 million cash offer was approved and I needed to store it overnight before the official transfer, I didn't even hesitate. I arranged everything. A private room at the bank, 2 security guards, Trevor and Marcus, from a firm owned by my college friend Kyle, tamper-proof bags, a direct route to my mom's house. She had a safe one I'd had installed years ago when she got into collecting those creepy porcelain figurines. The thing was practically a vault hidden behind a sliding bookcase, fireproof, dual-key electronic lock. I told myself it was safer than a bank deposit box, that it was just one night. I remember her face when the guards carried the bags in, widened eyes, hands fluttering to her chest. She tried to play it off. Goodness, Mackenzie, is all this security really necessary? But I saw how long she stared at the duffel bags. Rebecca was there too, supposedly helping with some garden club event. She hovered like a moth to flame, asking way too many questions about the house I was buying, whether I'd need another safe, if the sellers cared about how the money was transported. I should have known then. I should have noticed the way my mom avoided my eyes when she got that garden club call later that night, or the way Rebecca kept glancing down the hallway. I even thought I heard whispering in the middle of the night, but I told myself I was just tired. I was exhausted. I'd been working nonstop for months, and I finally thought I'd won. The house, the deal, the future. I remember lying in my childhood bed dreaming about what it would feel like to finally wake up and not be afraid. And then I did wake up. To silence. No smell of coffee, no sound of toast popping, no hum of my mom's radio in the kitchen. Their rooms were empty, beds made, house cold, and the safe wide open. Empty. Gone. I ran through the house like a mad woman checking closets, drawers, the driveway. Nothing. The only thing left was a single note propped beside the coffee maker. "Thanks for your money. Now we can live our dream life. Don't try to find us. Mom and Rebecca." I dropped to the kitchen floor, the note trembling in my hand. For a long moment, I couldn't even breathe. The world spun, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the only sound anchoring me to reality. My mother, my sister, gone. With 10 million, I don't remember dialing Jason's number. I just remember the sound of his voice, groggy, confused, soft with sleep. "Mac, what's wrong?" "They're gone," I whispered. "The money. Everything." "They took it, Jason." There was silence. Then the sound of him leaping out of bed. 20 minutes later, he burst through the front door in sweatpants and the old MIT t-shirt he always slept in. His eyes were wild, scanning the house, searching for something, anything that made sense. I was still sitting at the table, staring at nothing. "I've called them both 16 times, I said. Mom's phone goes straight to voicemail. Rebecca's rings once, then nothing. Jason didn't say, "Are you sure?" He didn't question me. He just knelt beside me, took my hand in his and said, "We need to call the police. Right now." The next few hours blurred. 2 patrol officers came first, their uniforms suddenly too formal in the cozy kitchen I'd grown up in. Then came Detective Sarah Martinez, smart, calm eyes, sharp as razors. She took everything in, quietly listening as I poured out the story with shaking hands. When I finished, she asked in that careful voice all detectives seem to master, "Just to confirm, you voluntarily brought 10 million in cash to this location, placed it in your mother's safe, and now both your mother and sister are missing." Said like that it sounded ridiculous, like I'd been the idiot. But I nodded. Yes. But this wasn't some casual handoff. I hired security. I documented everything. I didn't hand it to them. I locked it away. "And do you have proof of the withdrawal?" I showed her the bank receipts, the signed waivers, photos of the duffel bags. Her eyebrows raised slightly, whether in surprise or pity, I couldn't tell. "Ms. Walker," she said gently, "this is going to be a complex case. Family theft cases almost always are. They may try to argue this was a gift, a financial arrangement gone bad. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. A gift, I was buying a house. They knew that." "I believe you," she said, "but proving intent, especially with family, is complicated." Then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. It was a photo, my mother and Rebecca stepping onto what looked like a private jet, both in oversized sunglasses, both smiling like it was the best day of their lives. Then a voicemail from Rebecca. "Hey, sis," her voice said, sticky sweet. "Bet you're freaking out right now." A small laugh. "Well, get over it. You've had everything handed to you. Mom sacrificed for you. I struggled while you lived in your glass office towers and dropped 10 grand on handbags. This is our turn now. Don't come looking. By the time you hear this, we'll be somewhere with no extradition treaty. Love you." I dropped the phone. The cruelty in her voice. It wasn't even hidden. It was deliberate. Like she'd been waiting years to say it. And the worst part, she thought she was right. Jason took the phone and replayed it, his expression darkening. "We're calling Detective Martinez again. She needs to hear this." The next few days were a blur of panic legal meetings calls with Richard, my company's lawyer. We found out they had taken a private jet to the Cayman Islands, then disappeared. Fake IDs, burner phones, rumors of another destination, but nothing solid. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I started seeing a trauma therapist, Dr. Foster, who told me that betrayal like this rewires your brain. You weren't just robbed, she said. You were dismantled. That kind of wound doesn't heal overnight. I wanted to believe her, but I felt hollow. Jason started sleeping in the guest room, said my tossing and turning kept him awake. We fought, all the time. He wanted me to move on. You're stuck in this loop, Mac. You're letting them win. But I couldn't explain it to him. This wasn't about the money. It was about the lie, the years of pretending, the faked love, the fact that they could smile in my face and plan this in the shadows. Then one day I opened my mom's laptop. She'd left it behind, and what I found made everything worse. Emails, encrypted, password protected, but eventually opened. Plans, conversations between her and Rebecca labeled the exit strategy, research into offshore banking, private jets, tutorials on faking IDs. The first message dated 18 months ago. My mother had been planning this for a year and a half. It hadn't been a moment of weakness. It was a blueprint. There was even a list saved in her notes app titled Mackenzie's Weaknesses. At the top of that list, trusts family completely. I dropped the laptop and screamed. This wasn't about being naive. This was betrayal on a molecular level. 6 weeks after the theft, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Hollow cheeks, bloodshot eyes, a person held together by caffeine and fury. Jason had moved out temporarily, he said. Friends stopped calling. My professional network had gone radio silent. I wasn't just grieving the money. I was grieving my foundation, my sense of self. Every memory of my mother now felt poisoned. Every bedtime story, every hug, every whispered, "I'm proud of you," was now wrapped in doubt. And then, at 2:17 a.m., everything changed. My phone rang. I groggily reached for it. The screen read, Trevor Sullivan, one of the security guards who had escorted me to my mom's house. "Miss Walker," he said, his voice low urgent. "I'm sorry for the hour, but I need to speak with you, in person, immediately." I sat up in bed. What's this about? It's about the money and it can't wait. 20 minutes later, Trevor stood at my door. Same black security company polo shirt. Same calm intensity. Once inside, he scanned the apartment like he was checking for bugs, then turned to me and said the words that nearly knocked me over. "The money your mother and sister stole, it was fake." For a second, I couldn't comprehend what I was hearing. What the cash in those bags counterfeit, extremely realistic, but fake. I just stared at him. "Trevor, I pulled that money out of my account personally, at Pacific Northwest Bank. You were there. You watched me." He nodded. "I know. But what you don't remember is that 3 days before the withdrawal, you met with Kyle, my boss, and signed a special instruction form. You said you had concerns about your mother's intentions. You authorized a security swap. We replaced the real money with counterfeits and stored the genuine $10 million in our most secure facility." My mouth went dry. "I never did that," I whispered. "I would remember that." "You signed it," he said, gently pulling a folded document from his pocket. I took it with shaking hands. There it was, my signature. Not forged, not digitally added, mine. Suddenly a memory flickered. That chaotic morning at the bank. Kyle pulling me aside, walking me through final security paperwork, me barely listening. My mind laser-focused on the house deal, the seller deadline, the pressure. I signed without reading. It was real. I had accidentally saved myself. Trevor continued. "The real money is still with us, in our vault, untouched." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't a joyful sound. It was a raw, incredulous, disbelieving laugh. "So you're saying, my mom and sister ran off with bags of fancy Monopoly money?" He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. And we've been tracking it." He pulled out a tablet and showed me a blinking dot on a map. Monaco. The tracking devices embedded in the fake bills are still active. We've monitored every leg of their journey. Their spending patterns, their locations. Everything. I covered my mouth, a strange sound escaping me, half laugh, half gasp. Trevor, I think I want to see the real money now. 2 hours later, we arrived at Kyle's secure facility. Steel doors, fingerprint scanners, a vault that looked like it belonged in a spy movie, and there inside were 3 duffel bags, my duffel bags. Trevor handed me a pair of gloves. I unzipped the first one, stacks and stacks of genuine $500 bills, untouched, crisp, mine. I exhaled like I hadn't in weeks. The betrayal still hurt, but now I had something else. Leverage. They think they won? I whispered. They think they pulled it off. They're flaunting it, posting photos, taking joyrides, living in luxury, all while carrying literal garbage. Trevor nodded. Yes, and that arrogance is giving us a trail. Back at my apartment, I called 3 people. Detective Sarah Martinez, Haley Winters, my old COO and most trusted friend, Richard Bennett, my lawyer. We met 12 hours later in Kyle's high-security conference room. Maps, receipts, surveillance stills, financial analysis. It looked like the war room from a heist movie, but this time I was the one holding the blueprint. They went from the Caymans to Dubai, then Singapore, and now Monaco. Haley said pinning locations on the wall. They're spending like there's no tomorrow. Because they think they don't need one, Richard added. They think they're safe. They're not, I said. My voice was steady now. Because I know where they're going next. How Detective Martinez asked. Because my mother's predictable. She's addicted to the fantasy. And next on her bucket list, Milan. The table fell quiet. You're sure? Martinez asked. She's talked about it for years. Boutique shopping. A city where even the air smells expensive, she used to say. Haley looked at me. So what now? I stood. Straightened my shoulders. Now we take back what's mine. And I want to do it face to face. We had 5 days before the next move. That's how long it would take my mother and Rebecca to reach Milan, according to the tracker buried inside one of the fake bills nestled in their favorite designer handbag. And those 5 days, I didn't waste a second. I wasn't the heartbroken daughter anymore. I was the strategist. The war room we set up in Kyle's security headquarters became our mission base. Giant maps of Europe on the wall, a whiteboard filled with dates, spending patterns, passport aliases, surveillance images, flight manifests, timestamps, all meticulously connected by red string, like a crime show cliché, only it wasn't a TV plot. It was my life. They've booked a suite at the Palazzo Perry, Haley announced, tapping her laptop. 5-star rooftop views, full spa services, paid under the names Catherine and Emily Bradford. Classic. Detective Martinez nodded. We've already alerted Interpol and Italian financial crimes. They're interested, especially because the counterfeit currency is so sophisticated. Do they have authority to arrest? I asked. They do if we can confirm the fake bills are in their possession. We'll need to catch them with the money. I stared at the photos of my mother and sister, lounging poolside in Monaco, sipping champagne, smiling with stolen confidence. They had no idea what was coming. Then we do it public, clean, controlled. What's your plan? Richard asked. I smiled. They're creatures of habit. Every city they do the same thing. Luxury shopping designer restaurants, posting just enough online to show off without revealing their faces. But I recognize Rebecca's pose anywhere, and Mom's left wrist. She still wears that old scar from when she dropped the turkey on Thanksgiving. We used that. And just like that, the trap was set. We reserved a suite in a hotel just down the street from theirs. Kyle's security team set up covert surveillance around the restaurant where they made a dinner reservation. La Scolara, Michelin-starred, of course. Private booth. Champagne pre-ordered. They're scheduled for 8:00 p.m., Haley said. Should we wait until after? No. I replied, staring at their reservation on the screen. We interrupt the celebration. The day of I felt calmer than I had in months. Wearing a simple black dress and my hair tied back, I looked like the kind of woman they thought they'd erased from their lives. At 8:15 p.m., I stepped into La Scolara. The place was dimly lit, warm, full of crystal glasses and soft jazz. I spotted them instantly. My mother in a gleaming emerald gown, her hair a rich auburn dyed styled and smug. Rebecca in Chanel laughing as she scrolled her phone. Between them sat a black Hermes handbag. My heartbeat slowed. That bag contained everything. They didn't see me until I was at the table. "Room for one more?" I asked. The expressions on their faces were worth every sleepless night. Shock. Panic. That half-second of hesitation when your brain refuses to believe what your eyes are telling you. "Mackenzie," my mother whispered. I sat down, smiled. "You two look expensive." Rebecca was the first to recover. "What are you doing here? Curiosity. I was just dying to know how my stolen fortune was treating you." My mother's eyes narrowed. "We didn't steal anything. You gave us access. You left the bags in our safe. That's not theft." I laughed softly. "You're going to want to stop talking now." Rebecca rolled her eyes. "You flew across the world just to whine. You can make another 10 million. We can't. That money changed our lives." "Oh, I'm sure it did." I reached forward and plucked a stack of bills from the Hermes bag. "Do you know what's interesting about $500 bills? They're so rare no one ever questions them. Great for luxury spending and perfect for counterfeiting." They both froze. "You're lying," Rebecca said, voice too sharp, too fast. I held the stack to the light. No watermark, wrong weave, chemical strip missing. Every bill in this bag fake." My mother's wine glass shook in her hand. "No, we used it. We've been using it at boutique counters, in tourist shops, places that don't inspect closely. Try walking into a bank and depositing one. Try buying property. You'll be in handcuffs in 10 seconds. Rebecca snatched the bills, her face draining of color as she inspected them. "The real money," I said, "never left the security vault. The moment I suspected something long before you even knew, I had it swapped." "You set us up," she hissed. "No, you set yourselves up when you chose theft over family. I just let it play out." And then, like clockwork, Detective Martinez stepped through the door, accompanied by 2 plainclothes Italian financial crime officers. My mother's eyes widened as one officer leaned in quietly and said, "Signora Bradford, we need a word." In less than 5 minutes, the dream life they'd built around my destruction dissolved into a murmur of Italian legal terms and quiet shame. As they were escorted out, I stayed seated. The other diners had barely noticed, but I noticed everything. I watched the bag disappear, watched their figures retreat, and I felt nothing but clarity. Not revenge, just peace. The arrest made headlines in every language. American socialites detained in Milan with TEM and counterfeit cash. Seattle tech millionaire's family caught in international fraud scandal. Even Forbes ran a piece. Trust blood in billions. When family betrayal crosses borders. I didn't give interviews. I didn't post anything. I stayed silent. Let the facts speak louder than outrage. But what I didn't expect were the messages. Hundreds of them, from former colleagues, past interns, women I'd mentored, even people I barely remembered. "I watched you get torn down and still hold your dignity. Thank you. Saw the article. Your strength inspiring. Hope we can work together again someday. You gave me my first shot in the industry. You still set the bar. And from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my father's brother, Uncle Mike. Your mom always wanted the world, but she forgot the cost. You didn't. Proud of you, kid." That message broke me in a way nothing else had, because growing up, he was the one who first gave me a computer. He saw my drive. And when Mom told me I wasn't ladylike enough, Uncle Mike bought me my first soldering kit. That night, I called him. We talked for 3 hours. He told me something I'll never forget. "You're just like her Kens. Ambitious, strategic, but you've got something she never did, restraint. You're dangerous, but kind." The court proceedings in Milan were swift and brutal. The charges attempted financial fraud, Use of counterfeit currency. International deception with intent to launder. They pled ignorance. Claimed they had no idea the money wasn't real. The Italian prosecutors weren't sympathetic. Then why use aliases? Why jump from country to country? My mother turned on Rebecca, claimed Rebecca pressured her. Rebecca in turn claimed she was just along for the ride. It was a viper pit. They were released on conditional bail, but both passports were seized. They couldn't leave the country. Every time they tried to swipe a card, their transactions were flagged, their assets frozen, their names tainted. In the eyes of the world, they weren't wealthy icons anymore. They were pariahs in heels. Back in Seattle, I took a long walk along Alki Beach, alone. No assistance, no security, just air. The sound of waves, the quiet hush of seagulls, the chill of salt water in the wind, and I realized something: I didn't want the money back. Not just because I still had it safely protected and untouched, but because chasing it again would mean they still had power over me. Instead, I called Richard and told him, set aside $3 million, put it in a trust for families recovering from financial abuse, silent grants, no press. He paused. You sure more than I've ever been. 2 days later, I received a letter, handwritten, no return address. It was from Rebecca. Mackenzie. I don't expect forgiveness. I know I lost the right to be your sister, but I need you to know I wasn't always like this. I think Mom infected me with her hunger. When we were little, I used to envy how calm you were, how focused. You had dreams. I had jealousy. I don't deserve your kindness. I don't even deserve your silence. But if there's one part of you left that remembers the sister I could have been, thank you for not ruining me completely. Rebecca. I sat with that letter for a long time. I didn't respond. Some silences are the loudest replies. 2 months later, I stood in front of a packed auditorium. I had been invited to keynote the West Coast Women in Tech Conference, the same event where I was once the youngest speaker ever at 22. Now at 33, I took the stage not as a prodigy, but as a survivor, a strategist, a woman who knew how far betrayal could reach and still walk out whole. I closed my speech with this: legacy isn't what you build for your family. It's what you protect when even your family tries to take it from you. The applause was thunderous, but I didn't need it, because in that moment I knew I hadn't just rebuilt my empire. I had reclaimed myself. I moved out of the city not long after the trial ended, not in defeat, not to hide, but because I wanted to hear myself think again. I found a modern cabin overlooking the Puget Sound, steel glass cedar, and silence. No paparazzi, no reporters camped outside my gate, just misty mornings, warm coffee, and the hum of tidewater beneath my windows. People asked me, will you rebuild the company? Are you starting a fund? Will you ever forgive them? And the answer was always the same. I don't need to rebuild. I protected it. What I'm building now is for me. Haley stayed on, not just as an assistant, but as a friend. We sat on my deck most mornings, laptops out, ideas flowing. You know, she said one day, you could run this entire empire again, but you're choosing not to. I'm choosing sanity. I said, smiling. She nodded. That's rarer than power. Rebecca was sentenced to 2 years probation. My mother received a suspended sentence and was banned from holding financial authority in any business in the EU. They returned to the U.S. eventually, quietly and completely broke. They live in a small condo in Florida now, according to public records. Last I heard, Rebecca was working in real estate, trying, I think, to carve out some honest living, and my mother still posting old photos of better times. I never blocked her. I wanted her to see what a life looks like when built without lies. But I never reached out again. Closure doesn't always need conversation. Sometimes it's just a locked door you no longer check twice. I launched a foundation 6 months later, named it after someone no one knew, but me, Mike's kit, in honor of my uncle, and that first soldering kit that changed everything. We now fund tech boot camps for young girls in rural towns. We teach financial literacy. We give quiet scholarships, especially to daughters who've had to become their own safety nets. I don't do it for headlines. I do it because when I was drowning, no one threw me a rope. So now I build bridges. One evening, years later, I found a handwritten note tucked into a donated package of old tech parts sent to the foundation's office. I heard what happened. I hope this helps someone else start over. A former sister. It wasn't signed, but I knew the handwriting. I stared at it for a long time, and then I placed it in a fireproof box with my grandfather's compass and a photo of the first computer I ever built, not out of sentiment, but to remember this betrayal may burn down the room, but you get to decide what you rebuild in the ashes. Now when people ask me who I am after everything I say, I'm Mackenzie. Not just a founder, not just a survivor, but a woman who rewrote her own legacy, and no one gets to steal that again.